I never thought my little charity project, as my sister mockingly called it, would one day put me face to face with royalty. But there I was, trembling as Queen Elizabeth II pinned a medal to my chest, calling me Her Majesty's hero, while millions watched on live television. Me, Sarah Mitchell from small-town Nebraska, standing in Buckingham Palace, while my phone exploded with notifications, including several frantic texts from my sister, who had ridiculed my work just weeks earlier. Growing up in a family that valued status and appearances above all else, I was always the odd one out. While my sister climbed corporate ladders, I spent weekends distributing clean water filters in developing countries. What my family didn't know was that my cute little hobby had silently grown into something much bigger, something that would eventually force them to see me in a way they never expected. This is the story of how I went from being the family disappointment to receiving royal recognition, and how sometimes the most meaningful victories come when you're not trying to win anything at all. My sister Megan and I grew up in Westfield, a middle-class suburb where keeping up with the Joneses wasn't just an expression, it was practically the town motto. Our parents, especially Dad, were obsessed with status symbols, the right address, the right car, the right schools. He built a successful insurance firm and expected both his daughters to follow paths that looked good at country club gatherings. Megan embraced this philosophy wholeheartedly. 4 years older than me, she was the golden child. Ivy League education, high-paying consulting job in Chicago, and engaged to a surgeon. I still remember Thanksgiving dinners where Dad would proudly announce Megan's latest promotion or bonus, while I sat quietly pushing food around my plate. Mom was slightly more understanding, though she'd constantly tried to help by sending me links to corporate job openings or setting me up with sons of her friends. "Sarah, honey, you have so much potential," she'd say, meaning I was wasting it. What they couldn't understand was that I'd felt a different calling since my college trip to Honduras after a devastating hurricane. Seeing children drinking contaminated water changed something in me. My charity work started small, weekend fundraisers selling homemade cookies to buy water filters for villages in developing countries. But at family gatherings, it became a running joke. "So, Sarah, saved the world yet?" Megan would ask, with that smile that never reached her eyes. During my cousin's wedding, when I was 28, I announced I'd secured funding to distribute 500 water filters in Ethiopia. Megan clinked her champagne glass. "Aw, look at our little Mother Teresa. Meanwhile, some of us are working on securing our retirement." Everyone laughed. Even Dad snorted into his drink while giving me that familiar, disappointed look. What no one knew, what I'd kept secret even from my parents, was that my cute nonprofit had expanded dramatically. We'd developed an innovative, ultra-low-cost water filtration system that could be produced locally in developing countries. I'd partnered with engineers, secured patents, and established manufacturing in 3 countries. The British Royal Foundation had taken notice and invested heavily, but I was bound by confidentiality agreements until the official announcement. The project was already saving thousands of lives, but I couldn't tell my family about the royal connection. Not yet. My nephew Tyler, Megan's 12-year-old son, was the only one who seemed genuinely interested. Whenever Megan wasn't looking, he'd ask questions about my trips, wide-eyed at stories of different cultures. "I think what you do is cool, Aunt Sarah," he whispered once, making sure his mother couldn't hear. "People need water more than they need fancy cars." That small validation meant more to me than he could know. Little did I realize Tyler had been following my charity's social media accounts in secret, learning everything about our work, a fact that would become important later. Dad's 65th birthday celebration was set to be the social event of the season, a lavish affair at the Westfield Country Club with over 200 guests, most of whom were Dad's business connections. I flew in from a field assignment in Kenya 2 days before, still jet-lagged and processing what I'd seen there, our filters being installed in a village that had lost half its children to waterborne diseases the previous year. Megan had taken charge of planning everything, naturally. "Try to wear something appropriate," she texted me. "Nordstrom has some nice dresses on sale." I bit my tongue and didn't respond that I'd been busy helping install water systems rather than shopping. When I arrived at my parents' house, Mom immediately fussed over my appearance. "Your hair's so dry, sweetie, and you've lost weight. Don't they feed you in those countries?" The morning of the party, I received an email that made my heart race. The Queen's office had confirmed the date for the ceremony. In 3 weeks, I would be receiving the Queen's Innovation Award at Buckingham Palace for our water filtration system that was projected to save millions of lives. The email included strict confidentiality requirements until the official press release next week. I was bursting to share this news, but had to keep it contained. At the country club, Megan had outdone herself. Ice sculptures, a 5-piece band, and place cards with gold lettering. She floated around in a designer dress, playing the perfect hostess. "Sarah, you made it!" She air-kissed my cheeks when I arrived. "That dress is nice. Vintage?" It wasn't. I'd bought it that morning in a panic. During cocktail hour, I overheard Megan describing me to her friends. "My sister? Oh, she does this charity thing. It's sweet, really, like a gap year that never ended." They all laughed. She's always been idealistic. Meanwhile, I just closed a 7-figure consulting deal with Amazon last week. I slipped away, finding refuge near the bar where Tyler was playing on his phone. "Hey, Aunt Sarah," he said, eyes lighting up. "I saw your organization's post about the new manufacturing facility in Rwanda. That's really cool." Before I could respond, Megan appeared. "Tyler, put that phone away. And Sarah, Dad's asking for you. Apparently, some of his friends want to hear about your hobby." The way she said hobby made it sound like I collected bottle caps. During dinner, Dad, slightly drunk on expensive scotch, called for attention. "My daughters, ladies and gentlemen. Megan, who just made partner at her firm, and Sarah, Sarah has a good heart." Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the crowd. "Sarah, tell everyone what you've been up to with your little charity project." Put on the spot, I described our work simply. We provide clean water solutions in regions with contamination issues. "But what do you actually do all day?" Megan interjected. "It can't be a full-time job, surely." The tension was building. I tried to explain the scope of our operations, but Megan kept interrupting with dismissive comments. "So basically you hand out water bottles?" More laughter. "I mean, it's cute, but when are you going to do something substantial with your life?" That's when my phone rang, the Buckingham Palace office calling to confirm some details for the ceremony. I stepped outside to take it, and when I returned, Megan was in full swing. Sarah's always been the family dreamer. Meanwhile, some of us live in reality. As dessert was being served, the final straw came when Dad gave a speech thanking everyone for coming. He praised Megan at length for her accomplishments and her help organizing the party. When he got to me, he simply said, "And Sarah, well, she came all the way from Africa to be here." Then he moved on to thank the caterers. I sat there, a knot forming in my throat, as Megan leaned over and whispered, "Maybe next year you'll have something real to contribute." That's when I noticed Tyler watching me, concern in his eyes. Something in me shifted. The secret I'd been keeping suddenly felt like a burden I needed to put down. The moment crystallized when Dad announced it was time for family toasts. Megan went first, naturally. Her speech was polished and witty, filled with anecdotes that painted her as the devoted daughter and me as the family's well-meaning but directionless charity case. While some of us build careers, others build sandcastles, she said, raising her glass with that perfect smile. The crowd chuckled appreciatively. When it was my turn, I stood slowly, my hands trembling slightly. I hadn't planned to do this, to break my confidentiality agreement, but something inside me had reached its breaking point. "Dad," I began, "I wanted to wait until the official announcement next week, but I think tonight is the right time to share some news." The room quieted. That call I just received was from Buckingham Palace. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Meghan's smile faltered. 3 years ago, our little charity project developed a revolutionary water filtration system that costs 1/10 of current solutions and can be manufactured locally in developing countries. The technology has already been implemented in 12 countries and has provided clean water to over 300,000 people. I paused, watching Dad's expression shift from confusion to disbelief. "Next month, I'll be traveling to London because Queen Elizabeth II is presenting me with the Queen's Innovation Award for Humanitarian Advancement." The room erupted in gasps. Our project has received £20 million in funding from the Royal Foundation to expand to 50 more countries over the next 5 years. I looked directly at Meghan, whose face had drained of color. So while some people measure success by the size of their paycheck, others measure it by the number of lives saved. The Palace estimates our technology will save approximately 2.3 million lives in the next decade. The silence was deafening. Then, from the back of the room, Tyler started clapping. Slowly, others joined in until the entire room was applauding. Everyone except Meghan and Dad, who sat frozen in their seats. "I never shared this because I signed confidentiality agreements," I continued once the applause died down, "and because the work has never been about recognition or status. But I thought you should know that your daughter, the one you've been dismissing as playing charity, has been invited to meet with UN leaders next year to discuss implementing our technology in refugee camps worldwide." Mom had tears streaming down her face. Dad looked like he'd been hit by a truck. But it was Meghan's expression that struck me most, a complex mixture of shock, embarrassment, and something else. Was it pride? Regret? I couldn't tell. "I've respected your values and your choices," I said, looking at my family. "All I've ever wanted was the same respect in return." I set down my glass. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an early flight tomorrow. There's a village in Guatemala waiting for clean water." As I walked out of the country club, leaving a wake of whispers and stunned faces behind me, Dad called after me. I kept walking. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to turn back and apologize for being exactly who I was. The aftermath was immediate and chaotic. My phone exploded with text messages, starting with Mom, "Sarah, please come back. We had no idea." Then Dad, "We need to talk." And finally, most surprisingly, from Meghan, "I don't know what to say." I didn't respond to any of them that night. I needed space to process what I'd done. Breaking confidentiality could have serious repercussions. The next morning, as I was packing to leave, there was a knock at my hotel room door. It was Tyler, breathless from having biked across town. "Aunt Sarah, that was the coolest thing ever!" His enthusiasm was contagious. "I knew about your work already. I follow all your social media accounts. I've been telling Mom how amazing it is, but she never listened." Tyler became my unexpected ally in the family chaos. He showed me screenshots of conversations where he'd defended my work to his mother months ago.
I even did my science project on your filtration system, got an A+. His unwavering support touched me deeply. Later that day, I received an email from the palace. Someone had leaked the award announcement early, and they wanted to know if it was me. With a sinking feeling, I admitted what happened and apologized profusely. To my relief, they were understanding. Given the circumstances, Her Majesty has approved accelerating the official announcement to today, the email concluded. Within hours, the story went viral. Local news wanted interviews, and suddenly, the family that had dismissed my work for years was fielding calls about their famous daughter. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dad showed up at my hotel that afternoon, looking smaller somehow, humbled. "I didn't understand," he said simply. "I thought you were wasting your potential." We had our first honest conversation in years. He admitted he'd measured success in a narrow way and had missed the magnitude of what I'd built. "I was wrong, Sarah. I'm
proud of you." Those words, ones I'd waited decades to hear, finally came, but strangely, I found I no longer needed them as much as I once had. Mom was easier. She'd always been more supportive, just worried about my financial security. When she learned about the substantial grants and my actual salary as executive director, her fears were put to rest. "I just didn't want you struggling," she explained. "But you're not struggling at all, are you? You're thriving." Megan was the most complicated. She avoided me for 3 days, then finally requested to meet at a small coffee shop away from prying eyes. When she arrived, I barely recognized her. No designer outfit, minimal makeup, looking vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. "I've been awful to you," she began, no preamble, "for years." What followed was a raw conversation where Megan revealed something unexpected. She'd been deeply unhappy in her perfect life. "I built everything Dad wanted, and I'm miserable," she confessed. "When Tyler talks about your work, his eyes light up. No one's eyes light up when I talk about corporate tax strategies." The real twist came when Megan asked if my organization needed corporate finance expertise. "I've been thinking about making a change, using my skills for something that matters." It wasn't an overnight transformation. There was too much history for that. But it was a beginning. The ceremony at Buckingham Palace was surreal. Standing before the Queen as she presented the award, I thought about the journey. My family watched from the audience, all of them, including Megan. The Queen's words stayed with me. "Your innovation reflects the finest qualities of human ingenuity directed toward compassion." The most meaningful moment, however, came after the ceremony when Megan approached me, Tyler beside her. "I've been talking with Tyler about your projects," she said. "He's been educating me." She paused. "I've resigned from my firm. If you're serious about needing financial expertise, I'd like to help, even in a small way." It turned out that Megan's corporate connections were invaluable for securing additional funding. Within 6 months, she had helped establish a sustainable business model that allowed us to expand to even more countries. She discovered a talent for translating our humanitarian goals into language that corporate donors understood. We weren't best friends overnight, but we found a new respect for each other's strengths. Dad became one of our most enthusiastic advocates, leveraging his business network to create a local chapter that raised funds for our international operations. Mom organized community events that raised awareness about global water issues. Even Tyler got involved, starting a club at his school that connected students with peers in countries where we worked. The family dynamic transformed gradually. The old hierarchy of value, with corporate success at the top, gave way to a more nuanced understanding of contribution and fulfillment. The Queen's recognition forced them to see my work through different eyes, but the real change came from within each of them, recognizing that meaning and purpose come in many forms. It's been 2 years since that fateful birthday party and the ceremony at Buckingham Palace. Our water filtration systems are now in 37 countries, and we're on track to reach our goal of 5 million people with clean water by next year. Megan now heads our corporate partnerships division, bringing skills I never had to our mission. We're different people with different strengths, but we've learned that these differences, when respected, create something more powerful than either of us could achieve alone. I don't share this story to boast about royal recognition or to expose family drama. I share it because too many of us silence our authentic callings to fit someone else's definition of success. If my journey resonates with you, perhaps it's time to ask yourself, what mission burns within you that others might not understand? What impact could you have if you pursued it despite the skepticism? The world needs your unique contribution, whether it's recognized by a queen or not. If this video meant something to you, please share it with someone who might need permission to follow their own path. And remember, sometimes the greatest validation comes not from proving others wrong, but from proving yourself right.